Hey, Anupa here, and I'm super excited to be talking about the rare disease space with two people who've taught me so much about it. Josh Melo from the Neurology Center of Toronto's clinic at Brock University, and Amanda Maitland from Translational Solutions for Healthcare. The reason I wanted to go into this is because rare disease isn't exactly a super mainstream topic. Even though there's progress being made in the field all the time, more than ever before, and it impacts millions of lives. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask what you guys have been up to in the rare disease space and how you got there in the first place.
So I'd like to begin by kindly thanking Anupra for allowing me to come on here and answer some questions for the novel Rare Disease newsletter. I'm certainly excited for both the future of the newsletter and the rare disease space in general.
Hello. I have to start by saying thank you so much, Anupra, for conducting this interview and helping to bring some light into the rare disease space.
Well, I've been involved in the rare disease space since the summer of 2017. It all began as a summer internship with a clinic downtown Toronto. It was actually the second year of my kinesiology undergrad, and I had joined the clinical team as a research assistant, not really knowing at all what to expect. Well, it turned out that they had just recently taken on a patient with an ultra rare, fatal neurodegenerative disease that usually resulted in the death of patients by the age of 5. And so I spent the summer conducting literature reviews into the different experimental treatment modalities being researched for this disease. And by the end of the summer, we had found one particular research group whose potential treatment had disease reversing effects in animal models of the disease. To make a long story short, the patient's family ended up raising the funds needed to launch the trial, and she became the first patient to ever undergo this treatment for her particular disease. Fast forward to today, and I'm still quite heavily involved in the rare disease space. I helped to launch the rare disease program at the Neurology Center of Toronto, and I'm continuing to serve as a clinical research specialist for the team, as well as for Translational Solutions Group, which Amanda will speak about.
A brief introduction to myself. My name is Amanda Maitland, and I am the founder and principal of Translational Solutions for Healthcare. We've recently expanded into the Translational Solutions Group, and we are a tight knit company working closely with medical innovators and startups, assisting these companies to get investment ready, along with a range of other collaborations. We also lead a series of conference events focused on accelerating innovations for rare diseases. I have been heavily inspired by stories from those who I've met along my own journey and who I've worked with on projects over the past few years. Particularly, one of my partners who is a physician and his student intern Josh, who have a fascinating story about how they helped to navigate the first in the world gene therapy trial for a child with a particular rare disease. And this story, although it is not my story to tell, is truly the foundation of our why. As it opened the up a world of opportunity and just the general realization that there is no hub or set guidelines yet for those who are diagnosed with a rare disease, and let alone those who aren't even diagnosed yet and still going through the long and dreadful process of discovering their diagnosis, which is a process that can easily take years. My personal passion is the psychology of human behavior, mental health, and learning how to implement self care in everyday life. So I relate this to the wide niche of rare disease patients and their need for all of this with the lack of resources and accessibility.
Wow, it's so awesome that you guys are not just working on making an impact in the business side, but also on the clinical side. Now, what is it exactly that makes the rare disease space so important?
So I do realize the word rare is misleading when it comes to understanding the depth and urgency of the issue. A rare disease is classified as a disease that affects only a small percentage of the population, specifically when a disease only affects 200,000 people or less worldwide. However, when you put all of these rare diseases together, which to date there are 7,000 known rare diseases, it brings the number to an estimated 350 million people worldwide who are living with a rare diagnosis. These diagnoses include rare forms of cancer and diseases that we're actually all familiar with. An example of this is cystic fibrosis, as there are various gene mutations. Also, what I think most people do not realize is that this is a huge market for investment potential. The most expensive drugs in the world are in the orphan drug market. To note to those who may be unfamiliar, orphan drugs are drugs developed to treat rare medical conditions. Because the conditions are so rare, they remain commercially underdeveloped.
But because individual rare diseases affect a small number of people, they can be extremely challenging to study. Scientists often lack the basic information about a rare disease's symptoms and biology and the ways a disease can affect people over time. Research funding can also be scarce for the same reason. Due to the small populations affected by individual rare diseases, there is limited financial value in producing treatments for them. That's why advocacy groups and organizations are so important.
Yes, definitely. Rare diseases really aren't as rare as we think they are. And we'll definitely be getting into the funding side of things later on. But what do you think it'll take to solve or cure rare diseases? What are some of the biggest areas of opportunity, whether it's technologies, business models, or other approaches?
Well, it's difficult to say if we'll ever be able to get rid of rare diseases, but there are certainly some promising therapies on the horizon. One of the biggest in my mind is gene therapy and gene editing. Since many rare diseases have a genetic cause, I certainly see this as being a game changer in the not so distant future. Therapeutics aside, though, I think establishing more patient advocacy groups and research organizations dedicated specifically to raising funds and awareness for rare diseases are things that can be done right now in order to advance research in the space.
So, I don't know about getting rid of rare diseases per se, as genetic mutations range on such a large scale of possibilities, some that we don't even know exist yet. I would say it's more a matter of giving hope to these patients in terms of somewhere to go for research and understanding, being able to start somewhere when dealing with that specific rare disease, and knowing that they're not facing the fight alone, which highlights the need and importance of patient advocacy groups, not only for patients, but their parents, families, and caregivers. With recent advances in gene therapy and gene editing, I'm hopeful that breakthroughs in these areas will allow a domino effect in eventually targeting rare diseases across the board, as many rare diseases do stem from genetics. There is monogenetic, which are DNA changes in one particular gene. There's multifactorial, which is a combination of gene mutations and environmental factors, and damage to chromosomes, such as changes in the number of or its structures.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how these solutions like gene editing are not only for curing rare disease, but could also be used to prevent them in the future. And patient advocacy is definitely a super crucial but really overlooked part of the process. It's not just about tech. Now, what are some of the biggest barriers to creating these solutions, though? More specifically, within lack of funding or besides lack of funding?
Hmm. I think the biggest barrier at this moment is the lack of understanding surrounding rare disease, not just from a public point of view, but from a scientific point of view as well. I've been conducting research into different rare diseases for some time now, and one thing that's remained consistent amongst all of the research is that scientists really don't have a good grasp of the pathogenesis and the pathophysiology of these diseases. Until more research is spent building an understanding of these diseases, the longer we're going to have to wait for potential therapeutics to become available. Well, like I touched upon earlier, I think these barriers will be overcome by bringing people together and by forming networks of patient and research organizations with a common goal of generating more funding and committing more time to research.
So, Anupra, you are absolutely on the right track with the mention of lack of funding. The difficulty is that research for each particular disease is so costly, and those who take initiative in the navigation are typically the patient's family. Unfortunately, those who are breaking the barriers for the specific diseases are typically only successful when they have the ability to personally invest and research and the trials. Um, Accessibility to funding goes hand in hand with the small population that each disease specifically affects. I feel that once groundbreaking results and treatments for these diseases are approved and successful, it may be a foundation for these other genetic diseases. Therefore, in order to overcome these barriers, I believe it will be a steady process of developing the research and results from each individual solution to eventually reach a broader population by targeting similar diseases.
On that note of targeting similar diseases, the problem of lack of knowledge within a space is a problem for all kinds of diseases, not just rare ones, including diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer. So it's possible that advancements in that space could help bring forward the rare disease space too. What are some of the biggest questions that we need to be asking ourselves about the rare disease space, or new areas that we need to be researching into over the next few years?
I think the biggest areas of focus align perfectly with the goals of the two conferences hosted by Translational Solutions Group, and that is one, fostering innovation and discovery in rare disease, two, advancing research through the establishment of patient registries, and three, by enhancing collaboration between research institutions, government, and industry.
I would say ultimately, how can quality of life be improved for these individuals? I'm big on focusing on the quality of life because, as we aim to highlight throughout our conference series, solutions are not always about a cure. Small wins include connecting patients to new technologies that can make a single thing in a patient's daily routine a little easier. A brief example is a technology that allows someone with limited movement to be able to use and comfortably control a computer. Just small wins like that to improve the day to day tasks. Especially now with COVID interruptions, the basic care services are not being met. Now, parents and caregivers must overcome new obstacles regarding the availability and consistency of special care services.
Adding on to that, this one's specifically for Amanda. Tell us a little bit more about the TSHC conference and how it came to be.
I feel that the conference series came to be from several meant to be moments. Through our network, we came across two separate parents who had children living with rare diseases. Through conversation and exploring the needs and gaps from their personal experiences, we put our heads together and launched our first event in November of 2019 with the primary focus on bringing awareness to the rare disease space while gathering companies, both technology and pharma, who, although may not be able to necessarily treat rare diseases, they would certainly be able to enhance the quality of life. Therefore, the purpose of the conference series is really to support innovations in technology and therapies that would benefit those who are living rare, whether it be enhancing the quality of life or connecting those who might be able to work together to find treatments, get involved in clinical trials, and of course, the hope is always to find a better treatment and possibly a cure for the 95% of rare diseases that don't have one. Ultimately, we aim to be a platform for connectivity, bringing innovators, startups, industry, students, investors, educators, all to partner together with patients and parents to work towards accelerating innovations. As well, of course, to showcase the incredible medical innovations being developed not only here in the GTA and Canada, but globally.
Definitely much needed work. Now, finally, and possibly most importantly, what are some things that the reader slash watcher can do if one, they want to learn more about the rare disease space, or two, they want to solve a problem in the space? What are some ways that they can help make an impact too?
Well, for people interested in learning more about the rare disease space, there is an excellent report published by the Ministry of Health titled Rare Diseases Working Group Report. It's publicly available through the ministry's website and it provides recommendations to improve access to specialized care and treatment for people living with rare diseases. It also addresses some of the challenges this group faces in getting equal access to the care they need. Aside from that, NORD, which stands for the National Organization for Rare Disorders, provides many resources as well as information about events and ways to get connected and join the cause. For any other students out there like myself, I also encourage you to reach out to Amanda or myself and ask about ways to get involved with some of our projects at Translational Solutions. We're always looking for students with a diverse range of backgrounds and expertise in a number of different areas. There's lots out there, and all you really have to do is look.
So, this is a great question. I would personally love to be put in touch with anyone who is inspired by this niche There is always opportunity with my team at Translational Solutions to build together, even in a small way, by getting involved in some of our projects. With that being said, I'm going to leave my email here, which is amanda@translational.group. Again, that's amanda@translational.group. Reach out to me anytime, questions or comments, or any way to get involved and work together. I would love to hear from you. There's also a lot of opportunity and need for involvement and research. If there's a specific disease of interest, getting in touch with the leaders of its advocacy groups is always a great starting point. Josh also mentioned an excellent report published by the Ministry of Health titled Rare Diseases Working Group Report that is publicly available through the ministry's website, and there are some other great resources online as well. And to conclude on this note, something to remember is I know that as a whole, rare diseases, it's an overwhelming niche to overcome, but it really is about starting somewhere and building on the little successes, even making life better in some way for one family, one person, really means the world.
Sounds great. And it is so important that whoever is reading this newsletter isn't just watching this interview, but is using it as a stepping stone to either get more educated or start making their own tangible impact. With that, thank you so much, Amanda and Josh, for dropping the knowledge on rare disease. I've learned so much from hearing about your experiences. And you guys are making such an awesome impact on so many lives. To anyone who's watching, I hope you feel the same way, and we all can't wait to see the kind of impact you make. Thanks for watching!